Now that we've talked about the importance of working together when we're designing our pages and going through that revision and that editing process again and again until we get something we like, it's important to focus on what are called the principles of design. So I've got this slide up here, and if I was to tell you to try to write it down and then give me an overview of the principles of design, you might be panicking because let's be real, this design sucks of this slide. Good design makes information easily understandable. Because this slide is poorly designed, although it doesn't have a lot of information on it, it looks very complicated and confusing. We're going to be using the principles of design to make sure that our yearbook pages don't look like this, like throw up on a page, and that they're clear, understandable, and awesome to look at. So in the next couple slides, I'm going to change a little thing on the design of each page that actually uses one of these principles so we can see how those principles look when they are working well. Let's take a look at changing the very first principle, which is contrast. So what I've done here is I have added a color to the first letter of each word, which creates contrast, or the difference between either a dark and light or the difference between big or small, but some sort of difference is what contrast is going to be. So what happens now is that my eye is automatically drawn to that colored first letter versus the rest of the black letters because they are different. The other way I created contrast here was again in size of small to large. So I took that word, the principles, and I made it twice as large as the other words. We're definitely going to want to do this on our page with our headlines and sometimes what we call a dominant photo. So we want dominance to be established, and that's again making something a little bigger in terms of contrast than the rest of the stuff with both the headline and a dominant picture. The slide is still looking a little crazy, so I'm going to use my next principle of design, which is harmony, to make it look better. So at this point, what I did is I kept the first letter a different color, but I made it all the same color tan. So now it has more of a sense of harmony or unity. I can tell that these things kind of go together because it's the same color. Remember, just because we're given the option of creating contrast with a bunch of colors or a bunch of different sizes doesn't mean I need to go crazy. A design with 67 colors is not necessarily more creative or better than one with just 2 or 3 colors. So we are limiting down our color options probably to those 5 or 6 basic colors of our theme. And that's how we'll be able to use contrast, but still have some sense of harmony when we stick with just that color palette. On the next slide, what I'm going to do is work with the alignment principle. So what I've done here is I've aligned all of the principles of design in the center of the spread. And studies show that readers are more likely to spend time looking at a well-organized or aligned design than something that's just, again, looks like throw up on a page where things are just randomly spread everywhere. So one of the ways that we will use alignment is by looking at a grid system on our Yearbook Avenue designers. So we're ready to make sure that things line up either on the left or things line up in the center or things line up so all the pictures are at the same height or the same width. And that creates a design that people will want to spend time looking at. The next principle of design I'm going to look at is called proximity. So right now on this slide, I've got some random information just kind of thrown in there. But when I employ proximity on this, I have grouped related information next to each other. So I've grouped the CHAPS, or the 5 principles of design: contrast, harmony, alignment, proximity, and simplicity, all next to each other. And then I've spaced out some unrelated information, like they are important to remember always. That's given a little space from the principles at the bottom. The other important thing to note about proximity is that it applies to pictures as well. So for example, we had on the last slide, the pictures were just kind of chucked in the corner. Now they're next to those principles of design. So I should realize that, hey, this is a picture that's illustrating the principles of design. In our yearbook page, we will show proximity when we put our captions next to the picture they go with. If we're running out of room, we can employ that number system where we've put a little number in the picture that then relates to a caption later. But we want pictures to be next to text that it goes with, and we want similar text to be next to each other. Finally, the last thing that I've done in this design slide is employed the principle of simplicity. So I cut out that last picture. Good design is simple. This doesn't mean boring. It means that we get rid of unrelated or unimportant visuals so that the most important elements are emphasized. So on this page, I had two different types of pictures. I had kind of that clip arty looking one, and then I had the camera. I got rid of the clip art one because it didn't really give off the visual design sense I wanted. And this way, it's just simple, and I still have a little flavor with my picture in there. Now that we've employed the principles of design, contrast. So we have the first letter, a different color, and we've also got contrast with the different sizes of text to establish dominance with our headline. And then the next most important item is the next biggest, and then the smallest item is the least important. Harmony. We've included the same color for our contrasted first letter, and that groups those things and make them appear as a unit. Alignment. We've aligned all of our chaps next to each other on the left. They're not kind of staggered. And then proximity, where we've placed all the chaps in a line next to each other, and the camera is next to what we're trying to illustrate. And finally, simplicity. We don't have throw up on a page. If I close my eyes and I open them, my eye is automatically drawn to what's important and what I want to view in my page. In the next couple slides, we're going to break down each one of the principles a little bit more in depth, and I'll give you some examples of how you can utilize these in terms of design.